The long, slow days of Christmas have passed. Rest has been won and drunk to the dregs, and now, as the new year looms ahead, it is time to wake up and march onward into the promises and challenges of tomorrow. The turning of the year always causes a stir in my heart, a sensation of both sorrow and hope. I mourn for the lost years which cannot be lived again, and I look forward to the new years with their promises of continued joy and new beauty and darling surprises and successes which I now can only dream of. Of course, the future does not just fall into our laps. We must seize it and make something of it. Which is why, in the final days of each year, I transcribe my goals and aspirations for the new. These I would like to share with you today. May you draw inspiration and encouragement from them, and may God bless you richly in all your endeavors in the coming year. Now, before I could even think of getting my brain organized for 2025, I had to get my space organized. My desk and bookshelf area has just been compiling stuff, books, papers, dust, all of the things for so long, and I just wanted a fresh start, a fresh space in which to bring my aspirations for the new year to fruition. With things finally in order, I sat down to compile my list of resolutions, goals, aspirations, whatever you want to call them, for 2025. I called this a plan for 2025 towards a literary life. And I divided my resolutions into 4 categories: lifestyle, intellectual, reading, and writing. Now, I know that reading and writing are intellectual pursuits, but I've defined intellectual in a distinctive way for the sake of this list, and I'll explain that later when we get to that. For now, the first resolution in my lifestyle category is to build a paper life. What I mean by this is I want to prioritize handwriting and kind of creative skills in which I need to use my hands and minimize electronic usage. I love having notebooks, I love practicing calligraphy, I love doing paper crafting, and so I want to continue these practices in the new year and prioritize them over screen time, which I know is ironic since I have a YouTube channel, but I'd like to confine my electronic usage this year to schoolwork, so that is lesson prepping, teaching related projects, and my own homework for my master's degree in history, and of course for writing, posting on Substack, and continuing to make YouTube videos. I wanted to share very briefly a few things that I'm going to do to help me cultivate this paper life, as I've called it. So I've gone and ordered a stack of just craft paper notebooks off of Amazon. They're extremely basic and simple craft paper. I think there's about 60 pages inside of them blank. I am not a commonplace girl. I am somebody who generally just writes word vomits into whatever paper notebook is closest to me, and that's my commonplace book, I guess, where everything is together, but it's not organized in any capacity. Anyways, I want to get a little bit more organized and creative with these mini notebooks this year. So for example, one of these might be a prayer journal, and I'll write prayer journal on it, and I'll keep it by my devotion stuff. One of these might be daily poems. I'll get to that resolution later, where I'll carry this around distinctly to jot down poetry in. One of these is going to be musings on love or memories of Zach for the year. One of these will be distinctly for my new novel that I'm working on, distinctly for the main character actually, and anything that I think of that pertains to her, I'm going to jot in these notebooks. And I might keep them really simple by putting just a simple title on the front page here and then just loading them with all my thoughts and scribbles. Or I might do what I've done with the handmade notebooks that I featured earlier in this video, where I get out all my paper supplies and I collage the covers and make them really pretty. I might do that as well. In fact, I probably will do that. Yeah, I just love the idea of having kind of smaller, simpler notebooks on hand for distinct tasks that I can take with me when I go places, and that I can kind of curate my information, my thoughts in a semi-organized way. I'm honestly just really trying to get more organized here. Another idea I had was decorating one for winter, one for spring, one for summer, and one for fall of 2025, and keeping a seasonal notebook. But I might actually use my handmade notebooks for that instead. Give me one second. So for example, I have these two here. They're both very pretty and very springy. This one it's not very wintry in my opinion. I think it looks very summery, but it's my winter book, and so The quality of the pages aren't really, also because of I used glue on the cover and somehow that seeped through all the pages. It's not a very good quality notebook. It is hand sewn, handmade. So instead of it being like a journal or a poetry notebook or whatever, it's kind of where I collect and paste any letters I receive throughout the year. It's where I post just little scraps of paper, tickets, and things that I've collected, cards that I've been given, things that I want to save that I don't want to just have floating around the house or shoved in a box somewhere, that I actually want to maybe look back on and enjoy from time to time. So yeah, that's what I'm going to use these homemade notebooks for. This one has nothing in it yet, but I'm going to fill it as well. And I just think these are so pretty and just personal. They're very personalized. I love that. I love to personalize everything. But yeah, these will be more like writing focused and more for specific things and specific tasks, if that makes sense. And then I also went and bought myself some really nice roll point pens, roller ball pens, quick drying, distinctly for these notebooks. So just investing in some nice pens that I'll enjoy writing with, I think will also help me to keep this resolution. And this is a lot of notebooks. I doubt I would get through this many in a year, although it might be possible. Yeah, it'll depend on how my writing goes, but if not, then I will decorate them and gift them to people. Encourage my friends and family to also live a more paper lifestyle. And yeah, the goal being here that I'm not just jotting notes down on my phone, that if I'm just scrolling mindlessly on my phone, I can pick up a notebook instead and just jot down what I'm thinking about or what I'm struggling with in that moment. My second lifestyle resolution for the year is to make space for silence and the freedom of boredom. What I mean by this is I want to take time to sit in quiet, to think, process, pray, and create. There aren't a lot of slow, quiet moments in my day. I find I'm always so busy, lesson prepping, teaching, doing my own homework, reading, hanging out with people, spending time with my husband, that I don't take a ton of time to just kind of sit in my own thoughts and commune with God. So this year, I actually want to set a goal to get up bright and early every morning and spend the hour from 6 to 7 o'clock in the morning just reading my Bible, praying, journaling, thinking, maybe studying some Shakespeare and doing a little bit of reading. And I just want to start my day with this hour of quiet contemplation by myself with a cup of coffee, with nothing to do but think and read and reflect and write. Yeah, I don't think I could have this space and time anywhere else in my day. To do it in the afternoon, I would just be stressed out about not getting my homework done. To do it in the evening, my brain would be fried and I'd just be wanting to, get outside and spend time with my husband instead of by myself. So early in the morning, before I head to school to teach, is the perfect time for me to do this. My third lifestyle goal, and this is a classic, is to create a balanced exercise schedule that works for me. To pick activities that are enjoyable, not dread-inducing, to get out and get active and move my body, because if I don't do this, I am just a lump on a log. I'm just sitting all day, reading, writing, not really moving, and that is so unhealthy for me physically and mentally. So I know I need to get out, I need to move, I want to stay fit and strong, but I don't want this to be a part of my day that I dread. I want it to be a part that I look forward to. So choosing activities that I enjoy, like playing disc golf, doing a dance workout, kickboxing, that's how I'll actually be able to get excited about exercise and be able to complete these workouts. Moving on to my intellectual goals. So goal number 1 is to learn basic readable Latin. My students can read and speak Latin very well, and I have had no Latin training at all. So I feel kind of ashamed about it. So working in a classical school, it is the norm to know Latin, and I really want to advance my skills in this area so that I can keep up with my students, so that I can get the most out of reading ancient works. And I'd also like to keep practicing my Dutch if I have time, but I think tackling 2 languages in between everything else in life might be a tad too ambitious for this year. My second intellectual goal is to study art and obtain a basic knowledge of art history. One goal that I like to set for myself is to be able to recognize a Rembrandt versus a Vermeer, and honestly just any other famous art. To pursue this resolution, I'm starting by reading Rembrandt is in the Wind, Learning to Love Art Through the Eyes of Faith by Russ Ramsey. This is just an excellent kind of introduction to some of the greatest artists in the Western tradition, like Vermeer, like Rembrandt, like Caravaggio, like Van Gogh, the Impressionists, etc. So far, it's been really interesting, and I've already learned a lot. And there are some prints of some of their most famous works in this book as well. What I want to do is collect collections of art. I would love to have a whole book just full of Vermeer's paintings, for example, to study. But looking online at these sorts of collections, they are so expensive. I definitely can't afford to buy a collection of art like that, even in print. Maybe I'll be able to find one at a thrift or an antique store, but I'm not sure. For now, I'm just going to get the most out of this little book and the few artists that it touches on. I also downloaded an app called Artly. It has lessons on all the famous painters and eras and great works of art. I mean, looking at art on a screen is not the same as looking at it in real life. And when you zoom in on a painting, for example, you can't really see it very well on this app. So this app is not perfect, and I'm just using the free version. You can get a premium version, but with the free version, there's ads. So it's not the best, but I do think it's a resource that will help me learn to at least recognize artists and pieces of artwork. And it does have some really interesting categories. You can study famous artworks, you can study the Northern Renaissance, the Italian Renaissance, the Dutch Golden Age, Baroque art, Neoclassicism, Romanticism, Impressionism, all the way down to abstract art, contemporary art. All in all, this book and this app I think are going to be my starting places. If I can get my hands on some collections of art so I can look at prints, that would be awesome, but we'll see how far I get with this. Let me know if you've studied art, if you have any tips that might be helpful in pursuing this. My third and final intellectual goal, as I've defined them, is to make memorization a priority. I've talked a bit about this in previous videos, how memorizing poetry, for example, is so good for your mind and satisfying for your soul. And this is just something that I want to continue to practice this year. Memorizing little sonnets by Shakespeare, memorizing the first section of Goethe's Faust, actually, that's my main memorization goal for the year. Memorizing scripture verses, so that all these things are stored in your mind and in your heart, and you can take them with you wherever you go. I just wanted to read a quote from Russ Ramsey's book that kind of sums up why I'm pursuing the study of Latin, why I'm pursuing the study of art, and the practice of memorization. I just think this is brilliant. Russ Ramsey says, "Some people carry with them entire collections of Renaissance-era masterworks by Rembrandt and Vermeer. Others can close their eyes and revisit the Impressionists of Paris, Monet, Manet, and Bazille. For others still, line after line of scripture or Shakespeare effortlessly unfold from the recesses of memories dating back to when they were children catechizing or strutting and fretting their first hours upon the stage." I'm just imagining having a mind so full of art and literature that can just recall poignant poems, that can recall beautiful images. To have that stored in your brain to access at any time is just a wonderful thing, and I want more of that. I want more truth, goodness, and beauty cemented in my mind and heart and soul. And so these 3 intellectual goals of mine for this year are in pursuit of that. Alright, so for reading goals, my reading goals for the year are quite ambitious. First of all, I want to diversify the authors, styles, and time periods that I read. Right now, my author list is looking like Shakespeare, Tolkien, Montgomery, Alcott. Perhaps I will dive into some more C.S. Lewis and G.K. Chesterton. I'd also like to start reading the novels of Marilyn Robinson. In terms of styles, I do want to read more poetry and more plays, and even short story collections. Novels are for sure my favorite form of literature, and I'm always reading them, but I do want to branch out of that a little bit, and also to read more nonfiction, specifically history books and Christian theological books. Oh, and this year I do want to read a lot more fairy tales. Another reading goal is to keep a reading journal consistently. So I'm very inconsistent when it comes to these things. I might read a whole novel and not journal anything about it, and then sit down and read another book and journal through the whole thing. I just want to consistently be taking notes, writing down my thoughts, and writing down quotes from all of the books I read. So I'm going to designate a specific notebook to be my reading journal this year and see how that goes. My third reading goal is to read every day for personal enjoyment. I teach literature, I study history at the master's level, so I'm constantly reading and taking in information. but I also want to prioritize just reading on my own for personal pleasure, personal enjoyment, something that's not assigned to me, it's not part of my curriculum, something that'll give me joy. I'll probably do this mostly in the evenings when I give myself a bunch of free hours to do creative things and to get reading done, so I'm looking forward to that. My fourth reading goal is to continue to read aloud with Zach. We read probably a dozen books together this year. That constituted me reading aloud to him, and that practice has been so great in terms of bringing books to life for us, in terms of cementing them in my brain, especially as the reader. Reading aloud is an incredible way to get the most out of a book. And we love doing this practice as we drive, if we have spare time at home. Our goal together this year is to read aloud some really big, great works. So we just finished the Odyssey. Now we're reading Paradise Lost by John Milton, and I'd also love to read the Divine Comedy and the Aeneid aloud to Zach so that we can go slowly, we can talk about it, we can take breaks and digest it together. And finally, my fifth reading goal is to reread my favorite classics. Rereading is a very important practice. If you really appreciate a book, if you're a true literature enthusiast and the type of reader who really wants to get the most out of good literature, rereading is key to that. So right off the bat, I think I'm going to reread Little Women this year. I'm sure as the year goes along and I need a break from my more difficult reads, I will just reread some classic favorites as well. And I highly encourage you to do the same. Alright, hopefully more briefly now, my writing goals for 2025. This year, I hope to write another full-length novel. I completed my first novel and I wrote a novella and many other shorter works this year. I really want to finish a novel project that I've just begun this December in 2025. I also want to write, illustrate, and publish a children's story with my very good friend who is an incredible artist, and we have all these plans of writing and illustrating children's books together, and we are hoping that 2025 will be the year that we finally bring at least one of those projects to fruition. My third writing goal is to write a poem per day. This is going to be challenging because I'm not necessarily a poet by nature. I tend towards prose, but I do think writing poetry is critical to cultivating a well-rounded writer's life, and so I want to kind of incorporate this in my morning ritual where I write a few lines, no matter what. Even if I'm not feeling super inspired, I write a few lines of poetry per day, and hopefully by the end of the year there'll be at least a few lines or a few verses that are actually worth something. But I'm hoping that this practice will teach me to think and write poetically and not just in prose. Fourth writing resolution is to submit work to publications. By this, I mean submitting shorter works like poems or short stories to magazines and other publications that are looking for fresh writing. I haven't really done this in the past. I mean, it's a way to gain recognition if you do get accepted. And if you don't get accepted, it's a way to just learn to accept rejection, I suppose, and to put yourself out there no matter what. Those are critical skills for a writer to develop. My fifth writing goal is to make a personal year-end anthology to share. I've never done this, but I do write a lot in a year, and it would be cool to kind of compile some of my favorite pieces, whether they're short reflections, short stories, poems, bigger chunks of a novel, and just compile it in a little book or a little booklet of some sort just to share with immediate friends and family who might be interested, and just to have on my own shelf to look back on. Sixth writing goal is to be more consistent on Substack. I've really struggled this year to write kind of the nice narratives for Substack that I started off in 2023. So hopefully in 2024 I can get more comfortable using Substack again and make more of an effort to write pieces specifically for my Substack following. And finally, I still want to start a writers group or a literary society. I have such big dreams of this. I just need to find people in my area who are also writers, whether they're poets or novelists or anything else. Yeah, I know a lot of artistic, creative people, but none that are as dedicated to writing as I am, so I would love to find some more kindred spirits of this kind and form some sort of a group where we can share our work together, discuss the writer life, and just encourage each other onward in our literary endeavors. Alright, if you've made it to this part of the video, you're amazing. Thank you so much for still being here. To end this video, I just want to briefly talk about some YouTube plans for 2025. I feel like I need to be planning my content for the year, but that's just not how I work at all. At the beginning of a week, I'll just decide what kind of a video I feel like making, and I'll make that kind of video. And I really don't overthink or overplan. I kind of make videos based on what's inspiring me and moving me in the moment and kind of what I feel like doing. So I will probably continue to do that in 2025 because that's just how I am. But if you have been following me for a while and you have a preferred type of video, maybe you like it when I do book hauls or talk about the books that I'm reading, maybe you like more of like a study vlog or a lifestyle vlog, maybe you like advice videos, whatever it is, please do let me know in the comments so I can make more of those videos for you guys. Again, I'm so grateful for all of you, for all your support this year, for being here and allowing me to have this YouTube experience where I get to talk about books and share the things that I love. I'm so grateful for that. Yeah, I hope you found today's video inspiring and encouraging. Let me know what kinds of resolutions you're making this year, particularly if you're making sort of intellectual reading or writing goals. I'd love to hear from you about those. Please do like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you again very soon. And Happy New Year, everyone.